All right, welcome to pro football. First 50 years where we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now, I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970. And especially if you're going to go back in time and check out a game like the 1920s or the 30s. I mean, of course, you can go online, find a box score, who won, who lost, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was that someone kicked, where the game was played at, what the attendance was. You might find starting lineups for each team for exactly what happened during the game. Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos here, nothing like that. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get it on. And today's game, exhibition game. First exhibition game of the season for these teams. Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers at Forbes Field. Exhibition game. All Tuesday. How about a little bit of Tuesday football, huh? Tuesday, August 11th, 1959. Now, for both these teams, the exhibition season would not be something really to write home about for either team. Yeah, once again, it's exhibition. You look at it either way, right? If you're playing the game, now this game happened to be a pretty good one, right? But if you're playing the game, hey, you like to win it, right? But once again, if you don't win and you have a losing record or something like that, it's only exhibition. It's not the regular season. Both these teams, well, not they kind of collapsed at opposite ends of the spectrum. Let me whip it up here. And it's almost amazing how both these teams here. And I'll show you. In 58 and in 59, almost the exact same thing happened to both teams. We'll start with the Steelers first. Share the screen, pop up the Steelers. Now there's a little boo-boo here. I pointed out to you. I don't think anybody really cares because this is an exhibition game. But Pro Football Archives, this game was played on August 11th, not August 12th. It was played on Tuesday, August 11th. Now, once again, I don't know how to get a hold of Pro Football Archives. I don't know if they care. I don't know if anybody else really cares, but this is wrong here. This is right. Now, the Cleveland Browns, 34-20. Now, it's we're going to go over to the 34-20 part as we decided. Pretty good game. But this would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And once again, I think we're just 2-4. There we go. 2-4. Yeah, I mean, they won this game, then they lost, 3 in a row, then they won one, then they lost, So they were 2-4. I said, once again, it goes both ways. You play an exhibition, you're playing, let's win the game. But if you don't win, it's only exhibition. But what they did in the 58 season and the 59 season was almost identical. Now, have you ever seen the movie My Cousin Vinny? You know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the movie My Cousin Vinny, I highly recommend it. Now, well, look here. The Steelers, there were 4 in the final half of the season. 4-1-1. Not too shabby. However, first, for actually the first game of the season, they beat the Browns, and then they beat the Redskins a couple weeks later. But other than that, they were 2-4. They stumbled, bumbling out of the, which basically, hey, I played through the season. In a 12-game season, if you're 2-4, you got 4 losses already. Even if you were to run the table, it'd still be pretty tough to win. I mean, even if they did run the table, say they won this game and they won this game, say they won their final 6 games, they still wouldn't have won the division. And actually, matter of fact, in the Eastern Division, they started 2-4 and they would have won the final 6. They would have been 8-4. They still would have been 2 games out of first place. So it's pretty tough to get 4 losses halfway through the season. And they wouldn't have won in the other division either because the Baltimore Colts were 9-3. So, but you can argue, and we're going to show you in a second, you can argue about the 58 season too. Almost argue that the last 6 games of the season, if not the best, one of the best teams in football. Final half of the season being 4-1-1. Now, some of the teams did run the table the last 6 games and all that, like the Bears did. I know the Colts, I think, were 5-1. Yeah, so one of the best teams in football, but they finished the season really strong. It's just they stumbled at the starting gate, shall we say. But if we go back to the 58 season, it's the same thing. But in the 50, you can argue in the 58 season that the Steelers in the final, was it 7 games of the season? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we're the best team in football. I mean, once again, they lost, they won, they lost. So they were 1-4. Once again, you lose 4 games out of the first 5. You almost eliminated yourself almost automatically. But you can see right here, 3 wins, 4, 5, 6. It was 6-0-1 the final 7 games. The final 7 games, they didn't lose a game. So you can make a statement, a case that maybe the final 7 games of the season, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers were the best team in football. Of course, they didn't get to the championship game because they stumbled out of the blocks, but they did it both years, right? If they had started out a little bit better each year, possibly they go to the championship game. Who knows? Now, for the Cleveland Browns, well, this is the 58 season. We'll start with the 59. Now, once again, they didn't do very good in the preseason either. Right? They were 2-4 as well, I believe, right? They won 1, 2. Yeah, they were 2-4 as well. But once again, it was just preseason. It is what it is. But they almost did the same thing in 59 as they did in 58. Now, right up to here, they had 2 losses. With 4, they were 6-2. They were tied with the New York Giants for first place. Both teams were 6-2, 4 games left to go. Problem was for the Browns, the Giants didn't lose any games the rest of the season. But as we see here, this 3-game losing. I mean, they one of those things, right? They lost a tough one here. They lost a tough one here. I think it was this game. I haven't done a video on it yet, but I will be. I think Lou Groza missed an extra point. He doesn't miss many extra points. He's not maybe the most accurate field goal kicker, but he does a very good job of kicking extra points, and he missed one, and that would have gave him at least a tie anyway. But you'll see right here, the final 4 games they lost 3, and they just fell out of the division race because they said the Giants ran the rest of the table. The final 4 games, and the Giants wound up 10-2. But if we look here with the Browns, right, they stumbled at the end, and we'll go to the previous season. We'll go to 1958, and they did the same thing here. Look what they did here. Okay. Now they were in command all the way through. They had a 2-game losing streak right here. Lost a tough one to the Giants, and then they got blown out at home by the Lions. But then they won here, right? But then what happened here? The final game of the season, all they had to do was go into New York and either win or have a tie. They would have won the title. Pat Summerall, to me, I'm a Giant fan, right? So I'm biased. So please forgive me. I don't know. I'm an old-time fart. Once again, please forgive me. Pat Summerall kicked to me the most difficult field goal, possibly the most important field goal in history of football. It was almost a 50-yarder. Some recollections he was talking about, he couldn't see the goalposts, kicking it off of dirt in a 1958 football. They don't pump them up like the way they do today. They have them all nice in a bag and all nice and shiny, and they have the kicking football now. He was given a football. Kick it, dude. You can't see the goalpost. No one cares. If you don't make it, you lose, right? But anyway, please forgive me. I'm an old-time fart. But Pat Summerall kicked a 49-yard field goal, and the Giants beat the Browns here. So that forced a playoff game back in Yankee Stadium once again, and this time the Giants would win 10-0. So the Browns did the same thing, kind of, in a little bit of a different fashion, but in 59, they lost 3 of their final 4, and they to fall out of the divisional race. Here, they lost the final 2. If they had tied this one or won either one of these, they would have won a division. They would have hosted the championship game. Who knows? Maybe they matched up better against the Colts, and maybe they would have won the championship. Who knows? But both years, right toward the end there, they fell apart there. So it is what it is. But I mean, regardless, they both teams wind up with winning records. In the Steelers are 6-5-1, and the Browns are 7-5. So they were both had winning records after the 1959 season was over. So, I'm sure they were both disappointed because, as I said, the Browns fell apart at the end, and the Steelers, they fell apart in the beginning. And I'm sure some of that was due to injuries. And if they weren't injured and didn't lose some of those games, they felt, that they would have had a good shot at maybe winning the title. But it is what it is. But this game was played at good old Forbes Field. All right, so let's go to Wikipedia. What's Wikipedia got to say about Forbes Field there? All right. It was a baseball park in the Oakland neighborhood of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, from 1909 to 1970. It was the third home of the Pittsburgh Pirates, the city's major league baseball team, and the first home of the Pittsburgh Steelers of the National Football League. From 1909 to 1944, the stadium also served as the home football field for the Pitt Panthers until they moved into their own stadium, which is actually where in the 60s the Pittsburgh Steelers actually played at Pitt Stadium. Let's see. $1 million project was launched by the Pittsburgh Pirates owner Barney Dreyfuss to replace his franchise's second home, Exposition Park. Let's see. The stadium was made of concrete and steel, the first such stadium in the National League and the third in Major League Baseball. In a bid to be more durable than wooden ballparks. Plus also not to mention that, don't get me wrong, concrete and steel, fires can start there. I get it, but not like a wooden ballpark. Let me tell you what. Let's see. Some remnants of the ballpark still stand, surrounded by the campus of the University of Pittsburgh. Fans gather on the site annually on the anniversary of Bill Mazeroski's World Series winning home run in 1960 when they beat the Yankees. 1903, Pittsburgh Pirates owner Barney Dreyfuss began to look for ground to build a larger capacity replacement for the team's then current home, Exposition Park. Dreyfuss purchased 7 acres of land near Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, near the Carnegie Library. Adjacent to Scanley Park. I'll say Scanley, with assistance from his friend, industrialist Andrew Carnegie, quite possibly at that particular point in time, the richest man in the world. The land was very low price, so that Dreyfuss could spend more money on the stadium itself. Now here's the left bleachers at Forbes Field. And you see, it was a kind of an odd shape. Like it had, not all the way around. I think it had two deck, double deck, but it was like just part of the way around, not all the way, where I could have housed more people. Initial work on the land began on January 1st, 1909, but ground was not officially broken until March 1st. Nikola Building Company built the stadium in 122 days, and play began less than 4 months after the ground was broken. Wow, that's impressive. Though the scoreboard was operated by hand, the ballpark featured multiple innovations such as ramps and elevators to assist fan movement throughout the park, a room for the umpires, and a visiting team clubhouse similar to the Pirates. Wow. Nice. The facade of the stadium featured buff-colored terracotta. Wow. First game was played at Forbes Field on June 30th, 1909, one day after the Pittsburgh Pirates had defeated the Cubs 8-1 at Exposition Park. So one day they played at Exposition Park. The next day they started playing at Forbes Field. Let's see. I mean, a lot of things obviously happened here. Now, the Forbes Field right here, the outfield wall. Here we go. And a flagpole in its original location in Oakland. Very nice. I like that. Now, at the time, as you see, a playing field evolution, the stadium at the time was widely considered the best in the league. But as quite often what happens, it starts to deteriorate. And fortunately, it's time for it to go. As you see here, right, 1921, the seating capacity was increased by the addition of several rows of new box seats. 1925, seating capacity received a bigger bump when the right field grandstand was extended into the corner into fair territory, replacing a section of wooden bleachers. Construction of the new stands began in late winter and opened in June 1925. It was a big stadium, right? Large outfield space, triples, and inside the park homers were common. The Pirates hit a record 8 triples in a single game. 8 freaking triples in one game on May 30th, 1925. Wow. Conversely, the stadium was one of the most difficult to hit over-the-fence home runs. Let's see. And although Forbes Field developed a reputation as a pitcher-friendly ballpark, there was never a no-hitter thrown in more than 4,700 games played at the stadium. Wow. There's a lot. Here's a picture. Circa 1963, a scene from the University of Pittsburgh. It's just weird. I mean, it's not even. Like you can see there's a double deck and it stops here. I mean, a lot of it obviously has to do sometimes with the streets that are around the stadium and all that and everything. But you see here, it's like double decked, and like halfway from right field foul pole to center field, it just stops being a double deck. And over here, it's like double deck just down like maybe a little bit past third base. And that's it. Well, odd. And we are a recreated entrance, including ticket window located near the remaining outfield wall. So very, very nice. Once again, if you can't keep the structure, the stadium and all, they kept some of it, right? Recreated a little bit of it, right? Instead of just demolishing it and putting up a pizza parlor and some row homes and stuff like that. And forget about the stadium, So they kept part of it up there. Let's see. Forbes Field was praised upon its opening, but it began to show its age after 60 years of use. The park was the second oldest baseball field in the league at the time. Only Shibe Park in Philadelphia was older. Of course, that was replaced in 1971 by Veterans Stadium. Let's see. Memorials. There you go. The left field wall was moved to PNC Park in 2009. How cool is that? We got Forbes Field Monument in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There's a lot of, But you can see it never really held a ton of people. I mean, look, even from the 60s to 70s, it only held 35,000 people. Forbes Field in its early years. This is before this double deck was extended out into the right field, outfield. All right. University of Pittsburgh football team moved from Exposition Park into Forbes Field upon its opening in 1909 and played there until 1924 when it moved into the larger Pitt Stadium only a few blocks away. In the first game of Forbes Field on October 16, 1909, the Panthers defeated Bucknell 18-6. Now, this is crazy. 1910, Pitt's second year at Forbes Field, the Panthers went undefeated without allowing a single point. The Panthers had several successful seasons while playing at Forbes Field, including 5 in which they went undefeated. Wow. Very, very impressive. Let's see. There we go. Pittsburgh native Art Rooney founded his NFL team under the name the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1933. In 1940, they changed it to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The franchise first game was against the Giants, was held on September 20, 1933 at Forbes Field. The Giants won the game 23-2 in front of 25,000 people. 1940, the NFL Pirates were renamed the Steelers and otherwise struggled during much of their 3 decades of tenancy at Forbes Field. It took until 1942, the 10th season in existence, to actually have their first winning season. But of course, a winning season is a winning season, but you can also kind of look at it too. That was the war years. So some teams were a little more depleted than other teams, and also, let's see, the University of Pittsburgh's acquisition of Forbes Field in 1958 gave the Steelers some options, and they began transferring some of their home games to the much larger Pitt Stadium that year. The Steelers played their final game at Forbes Field on December 1st, 1963. The franchise moved to Pitt Stadium exclusively the following year. So from 1964 to 1969, they played at Pitt Stadium. And of course, in 1970, they moved into their new home, right? Three River Stadium. A lot of boxing, all kinds of things, but obviously, we're held there. So you can't necessarily. Baseball-wise, obviously they had some good. This one here, Pittsburgh Panthers against Washington Jeppesen in 1915, and you can see the place is just packed. Now, back then in the teens, Washington and Jefferson was a very good team for a period of time. Bob Folwell, the head coach, the original head coach of the New York Football Giants in 1925, he only coached them for 1 year. Coached Washington and Jefferson for a few years, and he had them. They were a very good team, very, very good team. I don't think they ever won undefeated, but I think one of the years they had like 1 loss. So they were good. They were good, but it's like at Forbes Field. Especially like baseball, a lot of things happen there. Obviously, baseball, but with World Series and stuff like that, not so much in the football realm, because Steelers didn't win their first playoff game until 1972. So, but you can look at just maybe not so much. There wasn't a lot of great football games there, whatever. But the players that played there throughout the years, baseball and football, it's hard to deny. All right, so let's take. Let's see here. Where are we at here? All right, let's take some pictures here. All right, let's some pictures. Gonna pop up? Nope. No, here's a nice shot right here. Is anything gonna work? There we go. That's a nice shot right here. And this is This is one of those things. This is opening day against the Giants in 1949. Just 20,957 are on hand. But it's just one of those things is that this is down the left field line is where Bill Mazeroski hit his home run, was over here. But it's just the way the stands are and all that. You look here, this is the Steelers, and here are the Giants in red. And it's like, where are the people at? Where are the stands at? This is 1959, I do believe. This was the game. The Steelers played the Eagles. I believe this was the game because this game was in the snow. The Steelers won this game 31-0. Whoops. Here's Forbes Field from the outside. There you see. Obviously, it's the way up. Almost every stadium was back then. You got the stadium, and then you got streets just hugging the stadium. Here's right. And this is not a photo; it's like a painting. But once again, you can just see it. I mean, there's like nobody back over here. You know, you can see the stands over here. Oh, here we go. Here you go, right? Same thing here, right? You can see the stands. Yeah, you can see it's a nice sized park, especially back here. I mean, look, it's got some depth to it, man. Wow. But it's just weird. I mean, just the way it is, because it's like, you know, double decked. It's like, well, you know, halfway from right field line all the way to center field. It's like halfway across is double decked. Then there's nothing. There's like nothing back here. Here's another shot. It's very small. Let's see. See these big. There we go. Right. So you got, it's double decked here, right? Just past third base right here. And then here, of course, you got the right field foul pole, right? And so and you got center field here. So about halfway, maybe a little more than halfway, you got a double here. So, I mean, you know, obviously a lot of people here. But once you know, there's some small stands here, but there's a big gap out here. You know, where they're missing. I mean, even they had like one, you know, small section of, you know, seats back here. They probably could have added, I don't know, another 5,000 people or so, or whatever, but it is what it is. Let's see. Any more pictures here? Oh, here's I guess after it closed down. All right, it's like all these weeds are growing there, I guess, before it got demolished. There we go. Demolishing it, I guess. Oh no, this is the construction of it. This looks old. So there's the construction of it right there. Here's another where it just run down. So now it looks like this might be a wrecking ball. This might be where they're maybe going in to knock it down, possibly. Unfortunately. There you go. Beautiful shot right here. Now here, and this is the exact opposite of those other pictures, right? You look at where are the people at? But I mean, here, you get the right shot. I mean, it's like, wow, look at all those people, right? What do we got here? You know, same thing here, right? Forbes Field in the summer of '66. So as I said, so this is the right field foul pole right here, and there's the double deck, you know, about halfway. So this must be really close to the end of where it's double decked at, right where the shot is taken from. But you can see, I mean, once again, you're like, wow, a lot of people there. But then, you know, once you get past where this person's seated, they're taking this picture, you know, all the way around, all the way to almost to the left field foul pole. There's no people. But it is what it is. But just a very, very, you know, nice stadium. I mean, one of the things, you know, like today, everything is, you know, everything double decked, and obviously they try to get as many people in there as they can and all of that. Well, it's just one of those different type of stadiums. It's a little different, you know, than obviously the stadiums they have today. But at least they have some of it still intact in the area. So, but they don't all last obviously forever. All right, so what happened during the game here? Well, we got a little bit of pregame action here. Let's start off with, where are we at here? The Pittsburgh Sun-Telegraph, August 11th, 1959, of the Pittsburgh Sun-Telegraph. All right, here we go. Steelers in first. Oh, let me refresh this, because sometimes I start touching this and it starts screwing up. Steelers in first, exhibition. Don't let the weather fool you. It's football season, baby. And if you don't believe it, some 25,000 fans will help the Steelers and the Browns prove it when they bang heads in the 4th annual Shrine Hospital for Crippled Children's game at Forbes Field at 8:30 tonight. Now, one of the things is a lot of these games wind up being for charity. A lot of them. And a lot of these games, both these teams did the same thing. They played at like neutral site games at neutral sites. The games weren't all in Pittsburgh or all clear. You know, they were played at neutral sites too. True, this is a preseason affair, but the way the rival coaches Buddy Parker of the Steelers and Paul Brown of the Browns feel about it, you would imagine it was for the National Football League championship. While neither Parker nor Brown will admit it, there's a trace of professional jealousy between them. They hate like all get out to be beaten by the other. For a number of years, when Parker was with the Detroit Lions in the Western Division, he used to feed upon the Browns. But since coming to the Steelers 3 years ago, Parker has been sort of starving. Steelers haven't been able to hold the Brownies in either exhibitions or league games during that spell. However, Parker feels he has the horses this year capable of holding the Browns at bay or even edging them before the final curtain rings down. Going to the post tonight will be the Steelers' best Colts. Parker hopes to spring his fantastic quarterback, Bobby Lane, from the gate with a driving start. Those running as an entry with Lane will be Tom the Bomb Tracy, who rushed for a Steelers record 714 yards last season, and Ray Matthews as halfbacks, and Larry Kretko, a surprise bull in training camp at fullback. The offensive line also will have plenty of speed and sock. Jimmy Orr, the Rookie of the Year in 58, and Jack Goose McLaren will be the ends. John Simerson and Frank Varacchione, the tackles. Mike Sandusky and John Nisby, the guards, and Ed Beatty, the center. The Browns will counter with speedster Billy Houghton and Frank Clark at ends. Lou Groza and Willie Davis at tackles. Jimmy Ray Smith and Gene Hickerson at guards. Art Hunter at center. Jimmy Ninowski at quarterback. Preston Carpenter and Ray Renfro at the halves, and Jimmy Brown, the all-league and all-ground gaining champion, at fullback. Those will be the starting arrays for the teams, but before the night is over, both Parker and Brown will show off their rookies at various spots. The Steelers' most promising newcomers are fullback C.R. Roberts, at halfback Charlie Toller, and the little fellow who gallops with power, and Jim Smith, the long-gone type. Browns have one newcomer on offense, but he isn't exactly a rookie. That would be Houghton, who was the league's top pass snatcher several times while with the Green Bay Packers. And there's Jimmy Orr right there. Sure-handed Steeler was the Rookie of the Year in the NFL last season. New Browns to oppose Steelers here tonight. While the Steelers appear, and there's Paul Brown, actually smiling, appear to be fairly well set for the season with Bobby Lane is in my ear. Directing the team, Paul Brown, coach of the Cleveland Browns, will use the preseason exhibition games to determine which of his two quarterbacks, Bill Plum of Penn State or Jim Ninowski of Michigan State, will best serve his purpose. Paul knows fairly well what Plum, his regular last year, can do. So he's going to start with Ninowski against the Steelers in the first game for both teams at Forbes Field tonight, the Shriners Hospital Fund Benefit Contest. Ninowski started only one game last year, the 7th against Detroit, and completed 8 of 17 passes for 139 yards. Plum, in his second season, threw fewer than any other regular quarterback in the league except for Eddie LeBaron of the Washington Redskins. He averaged 8.57 yards per pass thrown, compared to 9.42 for LeBaron. Wow, those are impressive numbers there. Ninowski can throw the long ball and get it away fast under pressure. He's thrilling to watch. He may not beat out Plum with the latter's edge of a year's experience, but it will be a battle. Plum is a good one. In addition to his capability as a quarterback, he can run and punt. Brown has a third quarterback coming up in Bob Tasic of Michigan, who is with the College All-Stars for their game against the Baltimore Colts at Chicago Friday night. But Bob probably will put in most of the season learning the Brown system. Like most pro coaches, Brown likes to have one man for the quarterback job and has been looking for the right one ever since Otto Graham finally quit after the 55 season. You can bet that with his thoroughness, he'll finally wind up with the one he wants. Plum carried the team to a tie with the Giants for the Eastern Division title last year with a 9-3 record, but it lost to the Giants in the playoff, and the Giants bowed to Baltimore Colts in the championship game. Lou Groza, the placement kicker, is back for another season and will start at tackle, and Preston Carpenter, who played offensive end the last 2 seasons, has returned to halfback, with Bobby Houghton, obtained from Green Bay, at end. Then, of course, there's the devastating Jimmy Brown to watch at fullback. Brown is gradually making over the club with the passing of veterans who served him long and well. All right. Let's go on to the next one here. So the next one we got the Pittsburgh Press, August 11th, 1959 edition of the Pittsburgh Press. All right, what's it got to say here? August 11th, 1959, Pittsburgh Press. Here we come. New Steelers on spot tonight. Parker anxious to see rookies against the Browns. Crowd of 25,000 expected to see the Steelers clash with the Browns at Forbes Field tonight in their annual Shrine game. But the edgiest onlooker in the entire house will be Coach Buddy Parker. The fidgety Steeler coach has been itching to get a full dress view of his 1959 team in action. We think we're going to have a pretty fair club, said Parker a few days ago, but that's only surmising until we get a chance to see some of these new men in action. Sometimes there's a lot of difference in practice and how these men react when the chips are down. The chips are down tonight, and the Browns rated 1-2 in the preseason polls. The Steelers are facing a tough foe as they will meet all season. It goes without saying that Parker's question marks, the new man who have replaced veteran campaigners, encounter a severe test in this outing. Parker's attention will be focused on 4 men. Offensive tackle John Simerson, or it could be Simerson. Fullback Larry Krutko, linebacker Mike Henry, and defensive halfback Don Bishop. These 4 have earned starting roles tonight. He's also eager to see halfbacks Jim the Jetstream Smith, Charlie Tolar, Walt Williamson, and Clive Bullion. Fullback C.R. Roberts tackles George Bilotti and Ray Fisher, and R.K. Brown. These are the rookies who have been the most impressive of the newcomers as far as the daily workouts are concerned. Should they continue their spectacular play when they are facing National Football League competition, Parker's personal problems will be solved. Parker has no monopoly on optimism this year. The wily mentor, Paul Brown, has perked up considerably since acquiring veteran tackle Ken Russell as a replacement for injured Mike McCormick, a trade that will strengthen considerably the visitors from Ohio. Brown says he has question marks too, a difficult comprehension in view of the presence of Jimmy Brown in Cleveland backfield. The big fullback is talented enough to erase all those problems with a couple of his thrill-inducing sprints. The Browns' question marks are of minor nature. Retired is end Darrell Brewster, but in his place is Billy Houghton, the former Green Bay ace, who is one of the best receivers in the league. The other serious problem is at quarterback, where the vacillating Brown can't make up his mind between Milt Plum, the league's number 2 passer last year, and Jim Nanowski, whom Brown rates as a better passer than the former Penn State star. The Steeler management, incidentally, has been aiming at and will be satisfied with a crowd of 25,000, which will swell Syria Temple's fund for the Shriners Hospital in Philadelphia. And actually, I've taken my son to Shriners Hospital in Philadelphia, and it's a wonderful hospital for kids. Fantastic. He went there many a time, so we owe Shriners Hospital in Philadelphia. We owe them a huge debt of gratitude. Although we were going back, it was almost 30 years ago we were going there, but fantastic. All right, so we're going to the August 11th, 1959 edition of the Cleveland Press. What did I got to say about the game here? Cleveland Press. There we are, the Cleveland Press. Okay. Noel, old face and old place. Now, Buddy Parker, fantastic coach. Of course, Paul Brown, right? And then, of course, Chuck Noll, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers to be in the future head coach. It started actually 10 years. 10 years from this game, 1969, he started out as their head coach. So you got three really good coaches in this game, although two will be on the sideline, one will be actually playing. The Browns will start several new faces and a few old faces in new places in tonight's opening exhibition game with the Steelers at Forbes Field. Game time is 8:30. But Chuck Noll, certainly the most versatile player on the Cleveland roster, will be an old face in an old place for this one. Chuck and Gene Hickerson, the Messengers, last fall will again be the alternating right guards against Buddy Parker's veteran club. Paul Brown came to camp with the idea of shifting Noll to a linebacking position, and that's still the long-range plan. Noll has spent most of the training time working behind Vince Costello at middle guard on defense. But the rookies tried at the offensive guard post. Only Al McClain, I guess, from Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina, managed to survive the first 2 weeks, and he rates only limited duty tonight. John Wooten from Colorado and Dick Shafrath, from Ohio State, both prime rookie candidates, will report Saturday after the college all-star game, and from the combination is expected to emerge demand to permit Noll to return to defense. Chuck is our handyman, says Brown. He can play 6 positions and is very quick at adapting himself. Noll, the former Benedictine and Dayton player, can step into any of 3 linebacking positions, both offensive guard slots and at center. He was drafted 21st in 1953 and qualified as a regular right guard from the start. Chuck was a right guard for 2 seasons, the left linebacker for 3 seasons, and moved back to the offense last fall. The new faces starting tonight will be right end Billy Houghton, longtime Green Bay standout, along with left end Farrell Funston from College Pacific and defensive left halfback Bernie Parrish from Florida. Preston Carpenter returns to running halfback for the first time in 3 years, and on defense, Jim Schaffner steps into Don Paul's vacated right halfback position. Henry Jordan opens at left end, and Willie McClung succeeds retired Don Carlo at right tackle. Also, Jim Nanowski starts his bid for the number 1 quarterback job. All right, what we got here? All right, then we got the Plain Dealer. It's another Cleveland paper. August 11, 1959 edition of the Plain Dealer. What do they got to say here? All right. We got 2 pages here on the Plain Dealer, and then we're off and running. Well, the Steelers will be going all out in their exhibition match with the Browns on their home grounds tonight. It's always such an honor to beat the Cleveland club, whereas Professor Paul will merely be prepping the members of his 1959 class for the payoff games. But nobody should be surprised, even so, if the Steelers wind up all in and out of gas. All right. Interesting. All right. 2 Brown rookies in the pit game. Veterans will be cast in starting roles for the most part as the Browns and Steelers open their exhibition seasons Tuesday night in Pittsburgh. Paul Brown has named 2 rookies for opening assignments. Bernie Parrish, the reformed baseball player from the University of Florida, gets the call at left cornerback. Farrell Funston, former College of Pacific star, will be at the slot end in the new Cleveland offensive setup. Buddy Parker, who sent his Chargers through a final tune-up at California State Teachers College. Wow. Who knew? We'll have R.C. Roberts and his only starting newcomer. Roberts, 6'1" and 220 pounds, is new to the Steelers, but had pro experience as a Canadian League fullback. The game assumes more importance than a customary preseason opener. The Browns and Steelers both figure as potential winners in the National Football League's Eastern Division. Browns cooled off after a fast start. Last year, the Browns opened with a rush and then cooled off in the stretch. Same thing happens 1959. Steelers were slow from the starting gate. Same thing in 58, same thing in 59. But once Bobby Lane took the helm and got the feel of things, they were a crack outfit. Lane is back and reportedly in excellent shape. So the defensive backs, particularly Parrish, could be in for a rough evening. Supporting cast in the secondary probably will include Jim Schaffner at the other corner and Junior Wren and Warren Lahr in the safety spots. Wren was bothered by an ailing back over the weekend, and Lahr was sidelined by a pulled groin muscle. Both went through the final workout this afternoon and should be ready to start. The 50-minute session included work on punts and place kicks. Dick DeShane, the specialist back from last season, did the punting and probably will handle the assignment in the game. Groza keeps his job as place kicker. Lou Groza still doesn't have any close competition as a place kicker, although Dave Lloyd, freshman from Georgia, Mill Plum, the third-year quarterback. Oops, where are we at here? I think it's on the next page. Yep. And Bob Gain, veteran defensive tackle, took a turn at the job. Parrish will do the holding, a very important assignment according to the toe. The Browns beat the Steelers 10-0 in the exhibition a year ago in the regular season games. In fact, Cleveland hasn't lost to Pittsburgh in preseason play. Although only Parrish and Funston are slated for starting jobs, Brown also hopes to look at Lloyd Peters, San Francisco State graduate, an offensive tackle, Lloyd at linebacker, and perhaps Dick LeBeau of Ohio State in the defensive backfield. Chuck Noll has been working much of the time at linebacker, but he'll be back at guard in Pittsburgh. Chuck Noll and Gene Hickerson will run in the plays as they did last season. This exhibition will mark the unveiling of the new offense, which features Ray Renfro and Billy Houghton as the flankers. It also will be the first time that the quarterback, either Jim Nanowski or Mill Plum, will have the option of checking off and calling a new play at the line of scrimmage. The Browns will travel by bus to Pittsburgh Tuesday morning and return to Hiram immediately after the game. Wednesday will be a free day with practice resuming here Thursday. All right, so let's see here. Bring us back here 2 pages. All right. And so we got, all right, so let's start with the game. What happened? Let's go back to that Plain Dealer, the August 12th, 1959 edition of the Plain Dealer. What happened? Steelers rally. Topple Browns, 34-20. Wound up being a good game. Very entertaining game. Because they scored 14 points in the final 3 minutes. So with 3 minutes to go, it was 20-20. So you look at, they blow them out by 14 points. Not necessarily. Here we go. We got Steelers go ahead. Fullback Larry Krutko of Pittsburgh bowls over from 1 yard out to score the first touchdown. Number 25 of the Steelers is Ray Matthews, and number 24 is Browns' Warren Lahr. And this is the way the pictures are for nighttime games. You can see the players, and in the background, it looks like they're just playing in total darkness. All right. Jim Brown races 74 and 7 yards for 2 touchdowns. The Browns fell. They fell before the Steelers 34-20 tonight in their exhibition opener, but things weren't as bad as that score might indicate. Pittsburgh scored 2 touchdowns in the last 3 minutes against an injury-riddled Cleveland defense to break open what had been anybody's ball game. Jim Brown, operating for just about half the battle, showed he hasn't lost the touch. The big fullback took a flare pass from Jim Nanowski and went 74 yards for Brown's first touchdown. Dude's unbelievable. He ran 7 for the other early in the third period. Lou Groza, working as the regular left tackle again, kicked the 2 extra points. He also accounted for the other Cleveland scoring with field goals of 23 and 37 yards. Bobby Lane was the head man for the Victors in his first preseason triumph they ever scored over the Browns. The Steelers shaping up as real title contenders in the National Football League's Eastern Division also uncovered a strong running fullback in Larry Krutko. He is a pro sophomore from West Virginia. 27,000 see Pittsburgh win in the fourth period. They had over 25. They had 27,432 fans looking on at Forbes Field. Krutko plunged 1 yard for the first Pittsburgh touchdown. Lane sneaked a yard for the second. Those two last period tie smashers were registered by Ray Matthews and Jim Smith. And here we have some stats here. You see Pittsburgh had 21 first downs. Cleveland had 12. Pittsburgh had 100 more yards in total offense. Let's say yards. Yards lost attempting the pass. Neither team, I guess, maybe sacked one time here. The Steelers. Browns, I guess, weren't sacked at all. So, Matthews, veteran flanker who seldom carries the football, romped 8 on a surprise maneuver. That was the one that broke the deadlock. Smith, rookie fullback from Compton College, traveled 2 yards around end for the last 6 points. That was set up by the Dick Lessie, who intercepted a pass from Jim Nanowski and returned it 37 yards down to the 2-yard line. Tom Miner booted the 4 extra points for Buddy Parker's club and also contributed field goals of 23 and 14 yards. Both he and Groza also had field goal tries blocked. Nanowski, the second-year man from Michigan State who was slated for a full shot at the Browns' passing job, went all the way. He tossed the flare to Jim Brown for the touchdown and also completed 14 of 27 for 199 yards. The 2 interceptions aided the Steelers' cause. On the debit side, he had 3 intercepted, and 2 of those led to Steelers touchdowns. John Rieger picked one off in the first quarter, and the home club moved to its first touchdown. Then Lassie set up that last score. Dick Albin intercepted in the second period, but the Cleveland defense was able to contain the Steelers that time. Lane, the old passing master from Texas, completed 17 of 30 for 253 yards. He had 1 pass stolen by Warren Lahr, who returned 15 yards. But the Browns weren't able to take advantage of that break. Frank Clark, who is in a battle for the slot end spot with some classy rookies, was, all right, let's go to the next page here, of the August 12th, 1959 edition of the Plain Dealer. All right. Oh. My bad. All right, what do we got here? All right, Frank Clark, who is in a battle for the slot and end spot with some classy rookies, was Nanowski's favorite receiver. He caught 4 passes for 53 yards, and several of the snags were of the sensational variety. A good number of Jim's tosses were of the flare type. Short ones to Brown, Leroy Bolden, and Ed Modzelewski, and Preston Carpenter. Carpenter returned to the running halfback, carried the ball 8 times for 21 yards. Jim Brown toted only 4 times in 2 periods of action, making 19 yards. The Steelers, who had 6 victories and a tie in their last 7 games in 1958, rolled up 372 yards to 273 for the Browns. Lane started out by picking on Bernie Parrish, the rookie defensive back from Florida. Bernie was able to hold his own, and then Lane moved to the other side. He hit against Jim Schaffner, Junior Wren, and Walter Michaels with more success. Paul Wiggin, slated for regular defensive end duties, went out early with a shoulder injury. Galen Fisk, left sideline linebacker, also was benched by Charlie Horse and was on the sidelines during the Steelers' late fireworks. Wiggum will be x-rayed today, but his injury was believed today only a bruise and not a fracture. Nolan Davis in double duty. Chuck Noll, slowed by a bruised foot for a time, operated at both guard and linebacker. Wow. Willie Davis, second-year man from Grambling, also saw some double duty at defensive end and offensive tackle. Bobby Wren, bidding for a defensive backfield post, returned one punt 53 yards behind some beautiful blocking that set up Jim Brown's second touchdown. The offensive line provided pretty good protection for Nanowski, and the defense did a fine job of containing the Steelers' running until the last quarter. Krutko proved a problem, picking up 85 yards and dashing 51 during the late push that ended in Matthews' touchdown. Now there is the teams. Right. All right. So now we're going to go to the August 12th, 1959 edition of the Pittsburgh Sun-Telegraph. What do they got to say here on the game? Pittsburgh Sun-Telegraph. Here we go. Right. August 12th, 1959. Steelers find that fullback. Oh, very good. Perhaps Buddy Parker won't have to go shopping for a fullback after all. Judging from the manner in which Larry Krutko, the fellow who wasn't good enough last year, handled the job against the Cleveland Browns last night at Forbes Field, Parker probably can eliminate that spot from the market list. The former West Virginia Husky dropped from the squad after the third game last season, scored only one touchdown, but he helped big in three others as the Steelers bopped the Browns 34-20 before 27,432 paying customers in the fourth annual Sirius Shrine benefit game for its hospital for crippled children. It was his plunge from the 1 foot out that gave the Steelers their first score late in the opening period. His runs in the second period set up quarterback Bobby Lane's swan from the 1 yard marker in the second period. And here we got here. Oops. First tally, Larry Krutko scoring the first Steeler touchdown in the first period at Forbes Field. Warren Lahr of the Browns is in the foreground. The Steelers won 34-20 with the last quarter outburst. And once again, there's a picture, and you see the players, but in the background, it looks like they're playing in total darkness. Whoops. Bobby Lane swan from the 1 yard marker in the second period, and his 51-yard jaunt on a trap in the last session was the play that broke open the game for the locals. He also was top ground gainer with 85 yards. Along with Krutko in the Steelers spotlight were Lane, who played the entire game and passed for 245 yards and ran the game in his usual brilliant fashion. Halfback Ray Matthews, who sprinted through the Browns for 7 yards and the touchdown that put his team in lead to stay in the fourth quarter, and Jim Jetstream Smith, the fleet freshman from Compton, who sped around right end for the closing TD with but 5 seconds to go in the game. Wow. Now, once again, that happens a lot. But nowadays, if the Steelers are up, what would it be, 27-20, there's 5 seconds left to go, and you're not running the ball. You're taking a knee, and you're walking off the field. But in those days, they played every second. There was no taking a knee. For the Browns, it was, as usual, Jimmy Brown, the all-league fullback. He carried the ball only 4 times, but he scored 2 touchdowns, racing 74 yards with a pass from quarterback Jim Nanowski in the opening period, and roaring off right tackle for 7 yards and the other in the third period. Of course, there were others like halfback Tom the Bomb Tracy and Jimmy Orr, who came up with some key pass catches, and linebackers John Rager and Dick Lassie, safety man Jack Butler and Ernie Stoutner, who were workhorses on defense. but all the Steelers after the game gave the nod to Krutko. Parker also praised the big guy along with tossing a bouquet to the entire club. It was a pretty good game for the first one, said Parker. Krutko looked real good. He always had good speed and movement, but he never used it last year. Now Al, he is okay. I also thought Don Bishop played a nice game at left wing. It was his first game there, and he handled it well. The overall defense of the club also was good, but we didn't cover well enough on punts and kickoffs. Those slips kept us in the hole several times. Coach Paul Brown of the Browns also thought the Steelers looked good and added that the game was the first scrimmage his club has had thus far. We got a sound beating, Brown commented. The Steelers deserved to win. I had to try out my rookies because that's the only way to learn if they haven't. And don't forget, my quarterback, Jim Nanowski, is only 23 years old. He was working against Lane, who knows all the angles. But at that, I thought the kid did a respectable job. He will improve. Speaking of improvement, the Steelers did in a big way over their exhibition bout of last year. Then they lost the first one to the Browns in Akron, Ohio, 10-0, and went through the rest of the 6-game schedule, winning only 2 and scoring a total of 39 points, only 5 more than last night's production. Wow. Interceptions and fumbles led to most of the scoring last night. Rager snatched a Nanowski fling on the Steelers' 4 and ran it back to the Browns' 40 to enable Krutko to bowl over for the first TD. Next came Brown's 74-yard romp with a side pass from Nanowski to Deadlock Matters just 28 seconds later. Rookie C.R. Reynolds' fumble gave Lou Groza a field goal shot from the 37, and then the Browns led 10-7. In the second period, Lane hit with 6 passes, and Krutko ran in a drive that went 76 yards. He ran it in. All right. Lane also carried for the TD, giving his mates a 14-10 lead at the half. Brown, the holder of the ground-gaining record in the league, soon put the visitors out front in the third period after Bob Wren ran back an punt 53 yards to the Steelers' 20. Jimmy ran to the 14 and later burst off tackle from the 7 to put the Browns ahead 17-14. Tom Miner's 23-yard field goal tied it again at 17 in the same quarter, and his shot from the 14 gave the Steelers a 20-17 edge in the last period until Groza bunted one from the 21 to not matters once again. Later came Krutko's 51-yard dash and Matthews' bolt down the middle to make it 27-20. And before the Browns knew what was happening, Lassie intercepted a pass on their 40 and raced it down to the 1, from where Smith zipped over with the icer to complete a 17-point splurge in the period. It was Parker's first Steelers win over the Browns, and it was, or over Brown, I guess. Or over the Browns, or Brown. And it was the first time the Steelers ever beat the Ohioans in an exhibition tussle. All right, and I got another one here, I think, right? Pittsburgh Sun Telegraph. Yeah, okay, so there's another one here. All right, so we got a little bit more here. Another one here of Pittsburgh Sun Telegraph. So we'll go to the August 12th, 1959 edition of the Pittsburgh Sun Telegraph. Another one here. All right, here we go. We got here. The young man's name is Larry Krutko from over across the line in West Virginia. And it may be a good idea to keep in mind because as time goes on, he could just be the big difference in a Steeler running attack, which seldom has been all it might. Anyway, that's what we turned out to be at Forbes Field last night while the Steelers were beating the Browns 34-20 for the first time in NFL exhibition game history. Sure was quarterback Bobby Lane, who stage managed and dominated the show with his consummate artistry, both as a tactician and as a passer who completed 17 out of 32 for a net acreage, totaling 245 yards. But then we all know Lane was Pittsburgh's Mr. Big going into the game. with the result that he didn't surprise, nor did he certainly disappoint the 27,432 witnesses who made merry in the stands while the Steelers put on a rousing 17-point final period. So we went in with Lane as an individual standout and came out with what could be the beginning of a first-rate brother act. Lane through the air and Krutko along the ground. Of course, one never knows about those things, not off the returns from a single exhibition game, but this much is certain. On the basis of Krutko's behavioral record last night, nobody's going to fault him and get away with it, especially after this 51-yard run that broke the game wide open in the last period. That was the turning point in the ball game, leading up as it did to what proved to be the winning touchdown. Naturally, Cleveland's very gracious Paul Brown didn't quite see it that way, being persuaded that the turning point was his own Preston Carpenter's fourth period fumble inside the 20-yard line, just as time when the Browns seemed headed for the lead. But as Shakespeare didn't say, fumbles will happen and men will clutch them fondly to their bosoms, though not exactly for love. The point is the Brown attack had been doing all this romping and roaring through the Steelers' defense once before getting on the clear and what seemed a certain Cleveland touchdown, on which John Rager made a spectacular play, only to have the whole thing called off on a clipping penalty. Mr. Brown considered the turning point number 2, and he might be right at that. After all, he pretty generally is. Nonetheless, taking bad breaks with the good and so forth, the score was tied at 20 when Krutko, with excellent timing on a trap play off the Cleveland right defensive side, burst in among the linebackers and reversed sharply to his right. There he picked up a couple of blockers and the awkward official heading rapidly downfield toward the Cleveland goal. Apparently, the blockers didn't know quite what to do about Larry, since he feinted behind them once or twice before reversing again, this time to his left. This gave him plenty of running room in that direction, but before he picked up full speed, the unforeseen happened, which is to say that Cleveland's Jim Schaffner came out of nowhere to bring Krutko down from behind on the 11-yard line. That would have been fatal, too, but it wasn't. Ray Matthews crossing the goal line unchallenged a minute later with the winning score. It's been a long time since the Steeler fullback has put on a climax run like that. As a matter of fact, it's been a very long time since the Steelers have had other than an ordinary run-of-the-gridiron fullback. And certainly not the breakaway kind, with speed plus a touch of deception downfield. Krutko's almost certainly the first NFL football to be cut from a squad after 3 games a year ago and have the innards to stick around on his own the rest of the way to work out with the team, then return a year later as a full-fledged regular. Incidentally, he took charge of the running attack almost right away. All right, then what do we got here? Then we got the Pittsburgh Press, the August 12th, 1959 edition of the Pittsburgh Press. What do they got to say on the game? Bum, 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 bum. There we go. We got another one there. Oh, there's a winning touchdown. The Steelers is carried over by Ray Matthews on 7-yard run in the final period. Steelers added another touchdown to ensure a 34-20 victory over the Browns in an exhibition game last night at Forbes Field. And hard man to bring down. Steeler fullback Larry Krutko picks up 16 yards after taking a pass from Bobby Lane in the second quarter. Lowell Wren makes the tackle. All right, what that? Former West Virginia star faces Steelers win over the Browns 34-20. Steeler coach Buddy Parker's 2-year search for a fullback may have ended at Forbes Field last night. At least it looked to be near a solution off the performance of Larry Krutko, the former West Virginia star, who led the Steelers to a 34-20 victory over the Cleveland Browns in the 1959 inaugural. The Husky gap-toothed Krutko, a rookie failed to make the squad a year ago, outrushed the entire Cleveland team as he led the Steelers to 2 touchdowns and ran for a third himself. The victory was a sweet one for the ambitious Steelers, giving them, as it did, only their third victory in 22 games against the visitors from Ohio. Wow. And it was a personal triumph for the cast-off Krutko, a retread at 22, who powered the attack that scored in every period. In addition to his opening score, which gave the Steelers a short-lived 7-0 lead on a 2-yard sweep, Krutko caught a 12-yard pass to the 1-yard line that set up the second touchdown, a sneak by quarterback Bobby Lane. Then, when it appeared the game would end in a tie, Krutko checked in with his third brilliant run of the night, a 51-yard sprint on a trap that took the ball all the way down to the Cleveland 11. It took only 2 plays with the score tied 20-20 for Ray Matthews to barge over from the 7 with a game-winning 6-pointer. Cleveland managed to stay abreast of the Steelers on a pair of long gainers of their own. Jimmy Brown tied the count with 7-7 when he raced 76 yards. You notice that this was 76. Another article, I think, said 74 yards. So he raced 76 yards with a pass from Jim Nanowski. And in the third quarter, after halfback Bobby Wren returned a punt 53 yards far into Steeler territory, Brown drove over from the 7 to put the Browns ahead 17-14. But that lead lasted only until Tom Miner got his next crack at a field goal, sending his first of 2 through the uprights, and the game's second tie at 17-17. There was another touchdown on a 1-yard slant by rookie Jimmy the Jetstream Smith in the first trip with the ball as a pro. Smith sped over from the 1, shoving his blocker Mike Sandusky aside in his eagerness to get into the promised land. Despite Krutko's auspicious debut in his comeback, it was Jimmy Brown, the fleet Cleveland fullback, who stole the show, used sparingly, obviously, as a device to safeguard the National Football League's top ground gainer. Brown put on one of his patented runs, outlegging the Steeler on a 76-yard pass touchdown. The game had the 27,422 fans standing in their seats. While the action was far from artistic, both teams were surprisingly well-conditioned, despite the fact that they had been in camp less than 3 weeks. 2, it was a game in which 4 passes were intercepted and 2 field goal attempts were blocked, one against Lou Groza and the other against Tom Miner. As usual, Lane was fantastic. The blonde Texan completed 17 of 30 passes for, it wasn't fair, 72 yards. But while he didn't pass for a touchdown, he pitched strikes in key situations. Parker, who was out to win last night's game at any cost, was mildly pleased with his Chargers showing. I thought, said he, that we look pretty good for a team that's worked so little. And there's that. Start lineups and all that. All right, I got one more here. We have the August 12th, 1959 edition of the Daily Herald. What do they got to say? All right, the Daily Herald. Here we go. Steelers make it red hot for the Browns. Late surge nets 34-20 victory in practice opener. Rooney men tally 4 times from inside the 10. Pittsburgh Steelers, packing a goal line punch, are set to renew the 1958 surge that made them the hottest team in the National Football League at the tail end of last season. Pittsburgh opened its exhibition swing Tuesday night by scoring 4 touchdowns from inside the 10-yard line, 2 with less than 2 minutes remaining to defeat the Browns 34-20. Steelers, undefeated in their final 7 games last season, broke the game apart when halfback Ray Matthews cut over from right guard from the 8-yard line to put Pittsburgh in front 27-20 with 6 seconds to go. Linebacker Vic Lassie intercepted Jim Nanowski's pass and ran to the 1, where rookie halfback Jim Smith scored. Yeah, that would never happen nowadays. Especially nowadays, and maybe in, if you're picking a pass off and you have the ball, you're not nowadays, they tell the guys, just get down. We won the game. Get down. So the scoring with 5 seconds to go, that's not going to happen now. Even an exhibition, usually they're just going to take a knee. But Larry Krutko, former West Virginia star, went over from the 2 in the first period to open the scoring. Cleveland tied it at 7 on Jimmy Brown's 74-yard run and went ahead 10-7 on a 37-yard field goal by Lou Groza. Bobby Lane culminated a 75-yard march with a touchdown sneak from the 1-yard line to make it 14-10 at the half. But Brown sent Cleveland ahead again with a 7-yard plunge in the third quarter. Tom Miner found the range with a 23-yard field goal to tie the game and put Pittsburgh ahead 20-17 with one from the 14 at the start of the final period. Groza retaliated with a 21-yard boot, which set the stage for Matthews' game-winning score and Coach Buddy Parker's first victory over Cleveland as a Steelers coach. And we got some here. Right? Pro Football returned Forbes Field last night and immediately reconverted it to used as much abused phrase, a house of thrills. It took the Pittsburgh Steelers to pump excitement into the old showground, something the Pittsburgh Pirates of late have been unable to do. Buddy Parker's proteges in the more, compact, I'm going to say, confines than Pitt Stadium ignited the big crowd with a play for keeps type of performances, although the game was billed as an exhibition. And yet it was, as far as Paul Brown apparently was concerned, it seemed that Mr. Brown used his whole card, jolting Jimmy Brown just long enough to score a pair of touchdowns. Otherwise, he was going with his second-team fullback, Dick Modzelewski. Also, Papa Brown never once protested a call made against his team. He was too much of a gentleman on the sidelines. There was no Tigers pacing up and down in front of the bench. But just wait till the regular season starts. As if for the championship, Buddy Parker, on the other hand, manipulated as if the championship were hanging in the balance. On the last play of the first half, he sent Tom Miner in to attempt a 45-yard field goal. He went with Bobby Lane every single minute on offense, and it took Lane talent to keep the Steelers ahead of a lightning-fast Brownie squad whose apparent edge of the Steelers was in the use of their fleet ponybacks to run back kickoffs and punts. The Steelers look great, though. Their jostling offense rang up a 34-point sum, not bad for a lid lifter. And with Jim Brown out most of the game, the best runner on the field was none other than Larry Krutko, we repeat, Larry Krutko. In Krutko, there is a storybook fable in the making. Stricken from the roster last year, Krutko has come back with a genuine fury that stamps him the first-string fullback. And the former Al Creecharge, ex of the Carmichaels and West Virginia U, had to beat out at least a half dozen candidates for the job. Larry totaled up the highest chunk of yards by far, including 51-yarder near the end of the game, which applied the clincher. Lane's passes to his several receivers were, after a spotty first few minutes, right on the button. Jimmy Orr proved himself Lane's favorite target, but completions were delivered to Ray Matthews, Tom Tracy, and Goose McLaren too. Tracy showed signs of being just as tough a runner this year as last. Better believe the Steelers look good. Longest 4 minutes of the night, listening to some character mangle the Star-Spangled Banner. The outfield goalpost rattled as the Steelers were about to score their first TD, lost in excitement, the inning results of the Pirates-Phils game. Ron, somebody, Illinois' end, best-looking rookie on the field for the Browns, his once white uniform made filthy by sweat and earth, gave testimony to it. Scoreboard clock off 24 seconds in the third quarter, a natural. Steeler rookie Bullion, clad in gold and black, rookie Perkins wearing the only set of faded pants for the Steelers. Met at the game Henry Ford, ex-Pitt, Brown, and Steeler gritter, wishing he were on the field instead of in the stands. Bobby Lewis, Pittsburgh baseball coach, blah, 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 manning his usual post, the turnstiles. All right, well, there you go. That's all kinds of stuff. Man, we had some good pregame stuff. Had some, a lot of times, especially these exhibition games, there's not a lot of real in-depth, detailed play-by-play kind of thing going on. But there's some good stuff there. Some good after the, some conversation after the game, some good conversation before the game, and some in-depth and detail about the game. It wound up being a very, very exciting game. It was 20-20 with 3 minutes left to go. But I said, one thing is, you do notice little subtle differences. I mean, especially even in the regular season, especially like the regular season when like a game is sewn up and the other team has the ball and they're winning. They can be winning by 10 points or whatever, and they have the ball down like the other team's 5-yard line or something like that, and they're going in, and there's like 10 seconds. Nowadays you're taking a knee. I mean, unless one of the coaches has a vendetta against the other coach, the other team. I mean, nowadays game, you're taking a knee, you're walking off the field, shaking hands. We won the game. Back then, there's like 5 seconds to go or so, and you're down in scoring position. You're trying to score a touchdown. You're scoring some points. So even an exhibition play with the game sewn up, and you just take a knee or just sneak it into the line and fall down or something like that, and the game would be over. No, that's not the way it was in the regular season and exhibition. There's time on the clock. You're trying to score. So, but for both these teams, the preseason was, both were 2-4. But once again, that was just preseason. At the end of the season, the Browns finished 7-5, and the Steelers were 6-5-1. So they were, the records were almost identical. It's just how they got there was totally different. The Steelers came out of the gates and they stumbled, fumbled, bumbled. But the final, was it 6 games or so, where they're 4-1-1, whatever. I mean, the final half of the season, they were very, very good. But for the Browns, they were 6-2 at one point, and they were tied with the Giants for the division lead. And it was anybody's race at that point in time. Problem is for them, with 4 games left to go, they lost 3 of their final 4 games, and they finished in second place, tied with the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's the way it was on this date, Tuesday. Oh, yeah, August 11th, 1959, as the Cleveland Browns played the Pittsburgh Steelers at Forbes Field, an exhibition game in pro football, first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.